Well, you're all very, very welcome to another edition of the Business of E-commerce podcast with the expert himself. To my left, John Leech. We're joined by some great business owners today, and we're going to have a really good chat on the challenges around e-commerce and building a business around e-commerce and how to really get yourself out there digitally and how the last year has been. You know, I'm delighted today we have Myriam Doyle from Mimitoys.ie. How are you, Myriam? And we have Melodie from Vixigifting, and we have David Tuohy from Fruitique. So delighted to have you all on board, and we'll chat with you all in a little while. But I want to start, as usual, with, he told me not to call him the big man anymore. I'm just going to call him the tall man, or the big influence himself, John Leech. John, how are you?
Not bad, Brendan, not bad at all.
Yeah, we listen, we enjoy these chats every week, really, with different business owners, and I think we're learning a lot as well as everything else in terms of how the industry is out there now after maybe a seismic shifting year in terms of e-commerce in Ireland and actually globally. We were talking, John, in the past about how the year has been so great with e-commerce, but it doesn't mean that everybody has been successful either. Can you tell us, are there common characteristics you've seen with successful stories?
Yeah, Brendan, I mean, last week we heard a lot about the importance of customer service, the importance of great content, you know, as part of the experience, and even like down to giving personal advice as part of that e-com experience. And they were all things that made, you know, the business we were talking to last week successful. And we've talked about building trust, talking to your audience, using your assets, you know, in some cases, you know, where you had a bricks and mortar business and you had customers and you had email lists and contacts, how that really helped you, you know, kickstart and drive on your e-commerce. And I'm sure the same sort of topics will arrive this week with our panel. I mean, we've got a really interesting collection of different businesses in different areas this week. But it also reinforced me, the conversations that we've been having is my belief that good businesses know what to do in the physical world, but the same principles and approach are required in the digital world. And the bigger challenge seems to be for business owners is figuring out how to transform that real world experience into something that's better in the digital environment. Like what do you really need to focus on in digital? That sometimes comes naturally, like if you're a store owner or a shop owner or wherever, and you have a customer standing in front of you, you sort of know how to talk to that customer, how to help them, etc. And you know, successful e-com businesses have known and figured out how to do that online. The other thing is like when we're talking about successful characteristics, like a good example taken from the real world is footfall. You know, every shop owner understands that the more people that are walking past their shop, you know, the more opportunity they have to attract their attention and convert them into customers. And well, in the e-commerce world, that translates into traffic generation and traffic generation tactics and programs. So how you invest in those tactics and which tactics you invest in to bring good quality traffic to your store, I think that's a critical success factor across most of the successful stores that I've seen. And I mean, that means successful stores have invested the equivalent of their rent money, you know, into good search engine optimization programs. Very often that's supplemented by paid search. And the ones that do that successfully, they know that some of these programs take a long time to grow and develop, particularly, you know, SEO. It's not an overnight success. It's 6 to 18 months to really see good traction in that space, and you have to stick with it, as long as you're doing the right things. And then the other thing is if you're running paid search to supplement that, then they're very good on their metrics. They know how much they're paying to acquire a new customer, and they know what they can afford to pay to acquire a new customer. And they know how much that customer is worth. And if they understand those three metrics, then that really, you know, allows them to make the right decisions in terms of how they progress. So, you know, there's some of the key things, and the people who understand that, they know that building, like some people think even today, I mean, pandemic or no pandemic, that if you build a website, some people think, sure, people will come and buy from it. Not the case. I mean, it really isn't the case. And unless you're really lucky or have something that's really unique, you know, that's not going to happen. Like very often I say to somebody starting off, like, you got to assume that you're actually building a shop down the bottom of a dark alley. And your job, you know, over the next, you know, the first year or 18 months is, you know, figuring, you know, working to bring that shop much closer to the high street, shine a light on it, and bring the right people, you know, the people who are interested in your product. Your audience, you got to find your audience, the right people to bring to your store. And if you're doing that, then you have a much better chance. You have the right attitude, you have a much better chance of being successful, you know, going forward. And I think when you couple that understanding of what you need to do to get good traffic, and then a passion for delivering a really good customer experience when you get the customer there, I think the combination of those two things is what makes, for me, is what makes a successful e-commerce business. And I know from looking at some of the stores that, you know, I know that the people we have on this morning have focused on doing some of that, and I'm really interested to hear their experiences about it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And just off what you're saying immediately, John, what I'm hearing is that you need to put in the time. You need to be patient. I see the sign grow behind you there. It really is like growing vegetables or plants or flowers or anything like that, isn't it? You've got to put the seed in and put the time in.
Yeah, you got to till the ground. You got to plant the seed. You got to water it, look after it. You know, and you know the laws of nature. You know, the laws of physics. You know, you can't subvert them. You have to work with them, I find. And people who take that, you know, medium to long term view, I mean, they're the ones that are successful. And it takes time to be an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, I'm afraid. You know, we love to hear about these success stories and all the rest of it, but you generally find when you scratch beneath the surface, it's built on, you know, sometimes years of experience and hard work to get there.
Well, listen, let's go to some people who are at the coalface and have great sites, and we really looking forward to hearing how it's going for you guys. Myriam Doyle, first of all, of Mimitoys. Tell us about Mimitoys and tell us the story of how you've come to where you are right now.
Thank you. Thanks, John. So Mimitoys started in 2004 as an online business. Then we were the first online toy shop. So started from a passion, having young kids, not being able to find the kind of toy mix I was looking for in Ireland. So the ethos is still the same. So 2004, 2021, we've gone through 5 different websites. The last one was implemented a year and a half ago, and it's a WordPress website. Before that, it was Magento. Before that, it was Bespoke, etc. So we've tried a lot of stuff, and but still, the ethos is selling toys to children between the age of 6 months and about 14 years old that you can't find in other outlets. So you know, people who buy from us, usually they're looking for something unique, different, that will last and encourage children's, you know, creativity. And, you know, so there is a kind of an approach in my head to what people would like to see in toys and play values of the toy. So that's the ethos. And I was interested in what you were saying, John, because I am 100% with you on everything you said. The only thing we cannot, you're talking about gardening and all, we cannot think how much time this all takes, you know, and you were talking about 6 months to whatever. So SEO, if you put content in your website, it will take a while for Google to catch that and rotate. I've been lucky with the business so far in terms of social media and spending on social media, on online marketing in general, is that because the first website was in 2004, we have good organic or natural ranking, and I've always been suspicious and reluctant to spend money on online marketing, but we do now. But like that, it's very measured. So for £1 or €1 I'm spending, I need to know what I'm getting back. So it's very limited and limiting. So I'm just saying that there is so much work involved in thinking all that. So my background is sales and marketing, and even over the last few weeks, because COVID has transformed the business, the sales have been multiplied by whatever. I'm not the figure person in the business, so and you were talking about various challenges. The challenge I had at some stage halfway through the COVID year was maybe I have to stop buying stock because the sales were so fast, and physically we do everything in-house, as in picking, packing, as well as the marketing and all the stuff. So there was a moment where physically we thought maybe we have to stop. So, that was a challenge of saying, stop, how to slow the business down, but we didn't, because that's not, when you're in business, you're there to make money at the end of the day. So there was no slowing it down, but that was a challenge that I thought I would never face, having to stop buying so that I would stop selling to slow myself down. So that's it. I mean, it's an exciting business to be in. It changes so quickly, and when I look at, I was saying to you, we moved from website to website. It's moving. You have to be ready to try. Doesn't work, move on to the next episode. Don't stay there. Don't be static in the business and in the website. It's an investment of time, of money. But if it doesn't work, let's move on, because the thing is probably to be responsive and listen. What are customers looking for in terms of, okay, there is the product range, but there is also the whole website and how it works and how you navigate, etc. So it's a fascinating business to be in, but you have to be ready for obviously trial and error and moving fast and responding fast to.
I think that testing mentality is really, really valuable. I learned, I mean, I've been around this space for 20 odd years, 25 years, and I've learned that at least half of my opinions most times are wrong. And the data, you come to, I mean, I think I've said this to you, Brendan, before. My favorite saying is, in God we trust, but everybody else has to bring data. And it's very much, the fact that you've gone through a couple of different iterations of the website shows, Myriam, that you have that mentality about, testing it, improving it, moving it forward, because nothing does stay the same. And even on marketing campaigns, most times I'd say to a client, we've got to test this for 3 months. We have set a budget we're all comfortable with, that we can work with, and it'll either work or it won't. We'll follow the best practice. We know how we'll approach it, but it may or may not work for different clients. So that testing and moving mentality is a really, really important part of the whole philosophy and DNA, I think, of a really good e-commerce operator.
Myriam, thanks very much. Yeah, John?
I was going to say, the other thing I loved about like Mimitoys, and my kids are a little older now, so I sort of wish I'd found it, maybe a few years ago, is the range that you seem to have curated. And I think that's driven by the desire to be, as you said, I think the one of the things I picked up on is that these are toys you can't find in other outlets. So there is a point of difference. And that's got to be important, I think, to your success, right?
It is, particularly since I know COVID has pushed reluctant online purchases to buy online, but that reluctance is still there. So now they will go back to the shop. So they still, I'm still a niche within a niche, but you're right. So I need to make that niche nice and expand it. Absolutely, yeah, because there are still few people who buy online. And then of course now Brexit is obviously to our advantage, because maybe people will be reluctant to buy from the UK for all reasons we know, but I cannot count on that only. There is still the behavior, whether you buy online or not, you trust the site or not. And it's an educational process, It is. So there is the range and there is the behavior of customers as well. Yeah.
Let's hear from Melodie Fox. Melodie, how are you? And tell us about vixigifting and how it came about and how it has been for you for the last little while.
Yeah, so to be honest, it's been a bit of a mad year. Like, I know everyone else is probably in the same boat, but vixigifting, it's a family founded company and we're a gifting agency based down in Tipperary. So our main store is online. So we don't have a kind of bricks and mortar store. We have kind of an office space where we do the kind of fulfillment and things. But luckily we were kind of ready to go with online. So when we actually launched, it was only late February last year. So we kind of launched everything, and sure, then all of this happened. So it kind of made us go into a bit of a kind of fight or flight mode of, right, well, we need to be able to adapt to this. So in one way, you know, we had our kind of online store ready to go and set up. But initially when we started, we were planning to target the wedding markets. And obviously with everything that's gone on, that kind of completely came to a halt. So we had to sort of pivot literally just as we launched into what kind of direction the business was going to be. So we'd cater towards B2C and B2B. So our B2C, our B2C e-commerce website, we kind of sell curated gift packages and gift boxes. And originally, like I said, when we launched, it was a lot of bridal stuff, a lot of wedding stuff, kind of maid of honor, bridesmaid proposals. And we kind of naturally had to evolve into maybe more of a space of, you know, thinking of you gifts, miss you gifts, and even what we've actually really evolved into is kind of more the space of mindfulness and self-care and, you know, mental health. And I think it was actually great for us because I think we've really kind of found our flow now, kind of a year and a half on, or however long it's been now. But in the beginning, it was definitely a challenge. And even in terms of our business side, like our B2B, we kind of were linking up with, like, you know, wedding events and those kind of things. And then suddenly that kind of industry just completely collapsed on itself. And we pivoted into corporate gifting, which has actually been hugely successful for us. And I think, especially for myself, I come from a design background, so I'm a graphic designer. And I think that being able to bring, you know, my knowledge of branding and things like that into gifting solutions for virtual events and employee gifting when people actually can't be together and aren't connected, it's really been great. But even just being able to, you know, tell people stories and tell brand stories when you can't actually physically be there in person. And I think that's a big thing as well, even for our own website with the e-commerce and our kind of gift boxes that we sell. Like all of our boxes, we like them to kind of tell a story, you know, that they're setting a moment in time. And one of our boxes now, the nightstand, which would be our most popular one, it's kind of themed around the idea of, like, you know, winding down, sleep, and all of that. And I think those kind of boxes are very popular because they're kind of allowing people to, you know, have time to themselves, like, and kind of focus on their mental health. But it's for the person that's actually buying the gift for somebody, you know, it's almost kind of staging a moment for them, you know, staging kind of a moment in time where this is for you, regardless of what else is going on in the world. This is, you know, your time to kind of focus on your own mental health. So it's been very challenging, but it's been definitely really rewarding. And I think even in terms of, there's been a big movement with, you know, Shop Irish and Buy Irish and even all this kind of like supporting local. And I think that really helped us as we kind of entered this new space, you know, and as we entered the kind of gifting industry, that people maybe were more willing, you know, to support small businesses and give small businesses a chance, as opposed to just kind of automatically going to Amazon or getting things for cheap. And I think as well, the last year, I think has maybe highlighted to consumers as well, you know, the challenges that smaller businesses face or Irish businesses face and things like that. And that, you know, even I think you talked in a previous episode about like shipping and things like that, that there's more allowing for, well, there's reasons why shipping is more expensive if you're an Irish business, as opposed to if you're buying from God knows where and it's only €2 or something like that, you know. So I definitely think it's definitely been a learning curve, but I think it kind of worked out for the best for us. I think it really helped us define who we were, what our business was, and where we stand in the industry.
So go on, Brendan. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to ask curiously, when all COVID settles down or it's over or whatever it's going to be, will you pivot back towards weddings?
Do you know what? I actually don't think so. I think we've really kind of found a niche with where we are, because even especially kind of coming up to Christmas time last year, like a lot of employers and like event coordinators, they're looking for kind of corporate gifting that has a focus more on mental health, has a focus on kind of self-care and mindfulness. And I think that kind of area that we're in both the kind of corporate gifting side and just on our kind of gifting on our own website, where like consumers can just come on and buy one-off gifts for people, I don't think we will. I think corporate gifting, mindfulness, self-care is definitely the way forward for us anyway.
And that's interesting. That's because I also like have a couple of clients in that sort of gift area as well, and like one of the things I was interested in is the need to make it personal as well. So
Yeah.
you know, the handwritten message, the card that goes, like it's not just a brown box that drops through the door, like and I was guessing when I was looking, I say that's got to be an important part of the experience, you know, for your customers.
Definitely. I think it's like what you were saying earlier, that when you go online, it's trying to still translate that personable, memorable experience that you would get if you were going into a physical store. Because I mean, when you walk into a physical shop, you get a sense for it, you know, you can kind of pick up the products, have a look at them, you might talk to whoever's like working in the store, and you just get a feel for it. And like, if you have a really nice experience, even with the people working there, that's going to be memorable to you. And like going forward, you're going to remember that in a positive light. Whereas I think when you kind of translate that into digital, everything is so convenient, it's so fast, it's kind of impersonal, that you're trying to connect with people again and make a memorable experience for people so that they remember you for it. And I think, especially in the gifting industry, it's kind of an interesting one, because like our customer usually wouldn't be the person who's getting the final product.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of an interesting one, because obviously with the final product we package it up really nicely, write the handwritten note and things, and there is kind of an experience of when someone receives it, there's almost the layers, you know, the outer box, and then they're opening the bow, and then and like it is an experience, you know. But I think for the customer, it's still trying to get across that through almost your website, you know, that you need your website to be welcoming, usable, like user friendly. And even in terms of your branding, I think branding can be very important to get across your message and who you are, you know, like especially at Vixie, we kind of focus on this feel good factor is what we call it, that it's not just for the person who's receiving it. Like we want the person buying the gift to get that feel good factor, knowing that their recipient is going to get the feel good factor themselves, you know. So it definitely is, it's challenging, but I think when it's done right, it can work really, really well.
I think it's recognizing that challenge exists and focusing on it. I mean, that's almost half the battle.
Exactly.
You know, from that point of view. And I think it is a theme that I've noticed as well, even a lot of these conversations as well, is about, like I've said, it's been a bugbear of mine for a long time, that we are, like from an e-commerce purchasing and shopping point of view, we are actually generally been at the forefront, not quite at the forefront, well up the league table in how much we buy online, but bloody hell, most of it goes outside the country. And Amazon.co.uk, I mean, that's got to be a big challenge even for you, Myriam. You know, how you compete with that monolith. And I think people are realizing that if you don't support local businesses, etc., you know, they are looking for that something different, more connectable to, etc. And I think as business owners and e-commerce operators, I think we have to make the most of that sentiment that's out there at the moment, and make sure that we get any benefits that genuinely people are feeling towards, you know, local businesses, even if they're online or physical. I think that's going to be an important part of the messaging that we continue to put out there over the next year or so.
Great. Let me turn to David, and thank you very much, Melodie. We'll be back to you in a few minutes. But David from Fruitique, tell us about Fruitique and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I suppose my business, Fruitique, is actually, it probably is a little bit different compared to Melodie and Myriam, because it actually is a brick and mortar store. And it's a premium fruit and veg store, and we also do cold pressed juices and salads, so the whole thing works in tandem. So the idea, it's one that I've had for about 2 years now, but we've actually only been in business for about 4 weeks. So we're definitely starting.
You're very new, yeah.
Exactly, and we're kind of starting with the difficulty settings turned up a little bit at the moment, because I think the location itself is a great location. It's on Lombard Street near Pier Station, and from there you can see the Grand Thornton building, you can see the Ulster Bank building, you can see Trinity, and obviously you can pretty much see the trains going across the way on Pier Station as well. Now, that's all great in normal circumstances, but at the moment, the great majority of those people are not there. because a lot of them are working from home, and a lot of them just aren't around for whatever reason. Because I live in Rathmines, and what I find is that that area and around Ranelagh, Turrion, the suburbs, they are generally as busy as they ever would be, because that's where people are situated at the moment. Now, did I think that by the end of June that things would be busier than they are? I absolutely did, but I think in time to come, what we're working on now at the moment in terms of our own online strategy is going to kind of help people come in the door for their first visit, because the great majority of people that come into Fruitique are generally on their first visit, apart from the people who live very locally and they might come more often. So I've taken the attitude that each day on social media and in any kind of online platform that you can do, it's an opportunity to showcase what you have and just to give people a greater picture of what the company is and what it's all about. And that's really what I've been trying to do from the very beginning. So just give people a feel of the type of products we have, the amount of times that it changes throughout the week, and also like the health benefits of it, and also just the value of it as well. So that's where we've been going, because like I say, it's a good location in the long term. I do expect it to become very busy, but during this point in time now, before things fully reopen, I'm kind of using it almost as a practice to really engage with the people who are regulars and create incentives for them to come more often, first of all. So last week is probably a good example. I made up these little cardboard boxes, about the size of a laptop roughly. And I basically said on Instagram, just on an Instagram story, it's like, these are €11. We are not going to specifically advertise this in the store, but if you see this post, pick one up and you can fill it with whatever you want for a grand total of €11. And that essentially is kind of like, it's almost like a secret promotion for the people who actually follow us on social media. And I like that. And I like kind of having that relationship with the people who follow us, because our actual following on, say, on Instagram has gone up over 100% since we opened. I mean, realistically, it was mostly just kind of friends and family before that.
It's always the place to start, David. It's always the place to start.
Of course, yeah, and it certainly has helped. It's a good way to kind of get the message out there as well. It's kind of put me in contact with a lot of good people as well. So even just from that point of view, but we're up closer to the high 3 figures now at the moment. Only get higher. I was kind of trying to compare it to other similar places that are more established, and we're nearly overtaking some of them, so it must be doing something right. I think a lot of it is all down to just making it visually appealing, because you do eat with your eyes, and it is a food company at the end of the day. So you really have to just bring it back to that, because I think the salad and the cold pressed juices, that's down to me in terms of like making that taste good, but the great majority of the stuff is already so good because it's that little bit higher quality, well, a good bit higher quality than what you get in the supermarket. So it's really just about giving that a platform to do as well as it can, because once you taste it, once you get people in the door, you generally find that people love it and they come back. But it's just more of a challenge to get people in the door right now, and kind of that's where the social media strategy comes into play. I remember a few years ago, I used to work for a company that was mostly doing drink promotions, and primarily it was for drinks that were less established on the market. And it's that old thing of, generally in a pub, you generally have an idea in your head about what you're going to order, and it's almost an automatic thing. You don't necessarily think about it too much. So it was all just about interrupting that flow before you get from the front door of the pub to the bar, to make people think of something different. Yeah. And it's essentially the same idea to essentially get people out of the same shopping habits as they would have had. Like, say if they normally go to SuperValu, to get them to reconsider that and to maybe see the value in coming to a place like Fruitique. So I suppose that's really what it comes down to. Now, because it is actually, it's just myself at the moment, because I mean, you know, we're working within a fairly specific budget. Now, I do expect that to change over time, but it's the 14-hour days for me at the moment. But I don't mind that so much. But one thing that does discount at the moment is having an online sales presence. But I've been speaking to, they're a small company, but they seem like exactly what I'm looking for at the moment. They're called My Organic Marketplace. And they've described it as it's almost like Etsy, but for food.
Etsy for food, right? Okay.
Exactly. So like it's ideal for me, because essentially the idea that they have is to do the marketing side of things, the online marketing, and essentially generate customers and funnel that towards me and towards their other clients. They take a little cut of that, so that's their, you know, that's their means of income. But then that would essentially, it could potentially double or maybe triple like per day, and especially maybe say on the quieter days when things are a little bit, you know, say let's say a Wednesday afternoon, things generally tend to be fairly quiet here. But if I'm seeing orders coming in online as well, that's going to generate more revenue, and it's kind of, it's not something I overlooked, but it was something that I kind of put on the back burner because I just knew I wouldn't have the bandwidth to do it in the early days.
Which is often the challenge of these things. You have to pick your priorities and where to focus.
Yeah.
But it's, and I loved your, you know, if you know, sort of.
That was it. Yeah, that's right.
That was a really nice little catchy, you know, and people love to feel they're getting a step up on everybody else. You know, yeah, I know, but nobody else does it. And those really
exactly. Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, I was looking because, you know, knowing that you were coming on, I was thinking back, because actually my very first job was selling vegetables and strawberries many years ago, around both in the marketplace in Tuohy and around the houses. So I sort of I have fond and not so fond memories of that experience at times, as you can imagine. Like groceries and food, like fresh food, like it is a challenge online for sure, and it had shown very little growth. Like unlike, I think China's, you know, something like a 60 billion online market for food, you know, fresh food, etc. But Europe particularly has been very slow in developing that. I think that's one of the things that the pandemic definitely, you know, I use Tesco online in terms of doing. I don't go into the super. I don't need to go for my main shop anymore. It gets delivered, which is a great. Not looking to advertise anybody, but you know, Super Value, they all do similar sort of things. But you know, I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to arrive. So I think for your there's going to be an opportunity there for your offering as well. It'll be a question of, and maybe that marketplace brings an audience that obviously is amenable to what you're doing.
I think so.
It'd be worth exploring. I mean, and maybe it's click and collect. Maybe that's the first steps, you know, rather than trying to ship. You know, like I've worked with a couple of fresh foods companies and trying to get that shipping element, that they're on time, quickly, and in good condition. It's a challenge for sure.
I think so, yeah, because I've often thought, like, just from my own experience just shopping, because all I really think about is food and I don't really care about much else. I would generally stay away from ordering things online. Because you need to get a look at it. I think, you know, it's kind of like if you're buying clothes in a shop, you know, the amount of clothes that I've bought online that I've just never worn afterwards because they're just not quite what you think they are. And like if you're buying an aubergine, for example, you know, you want to get a feel of it, you know, quite literally, because you want to be able to see its freshness. You don't want to see a picture of a generic aubergine. You want to actually see what it actually is. And that's always been my attitude towards it. Now, just purely the convenience of it is going to appeal to a lot of people. But I think in normal circumstances, there's enough people within a, say, 2-kilometer radius to make it, you know, at the very least reasonable. But then it's all about the way you actually kind of put it to people and the way you present it to people that will kind of make it above that, you know. And that's kind of where I'm aiming, because really, you know, because of the quality of the food, there's no reason why it shouldn't be the best store of its type in the area. There aren't as many as you might think in that particular area. There's a lot of small little convenience stores, but not really anything of the higher quality. So some of it should look after itself just on the back of the quality of the stuff that we're able to bring in. But people need to be aware of it, you know, and people need to see the value of it. I don't ever want people to think it's expensive or, you know, elitist, because it's not, first of all. And I think like the language and the way we interact with people online kind of helps that as well. It's not some kind of, you know, it's generally like a younger crowd that come in as well, and it's not even necessarily how I intended it, but it seems to be the way, and it seems to be the people who respond to that the best tend to come back a lot. So it's more about kind of honing in on that and developing that, and then gradually over time making it.
And that's even more important for your online customer. I'm sure, you know, it's trying to, that lifetime value of a customer, you know, the customer comes back and buys every 3 months, every 6 months, depending on the nature of the product.
Yeah.
Being able to identify that in your e-commerce traffic and your e-commerce customer set, I find is a really crucial part for again, the successful ones. They know, they can segment their database, you know, knowing that this is the type of customer we have to nurture, because we know it's going to come back over the next period.
I think what's very interesting with what David is talking about, John, and to reflect back on Myriam and Melodie, is buyer habits and how they've changed over the course of the pandemic. And I know, Myriam, you mentioned it, and Melodie, you've seen it in terms of pivoting and that. Buyer habits are very important, and that's why, you know, Myriam and her branding is very critical, and how she's focusing on, you know, key niche toys with learning, focusing on learning and that. And again, Melodie, how your branding ability is strong. But what I find interesting, John, with what David is talking about, is just that thing about the aubergine, because we as a family used to, we shifted to the you know, buying online or ordering online from Super Value. Actually, it was very good, great, really convenient. But I actually changed back to our local store here. We're 30 miles away from any major store or whatever, but I shifted back because of exactly what David is saying. Just that odd vegetable that you're looking for used to come kind of in a package, and it was much smaller than, you know, what I would have bought if I were in there. But what occurs to me is the change is happening anyway, and a lot of people are, David, I think, buying online because of convenience. And maybe where the potential is that if you were to focus on guaranteeing or making sure that the quality that person receives is above a generic sort of big supermarket quality. So even if you buy online from Fruitique, that the quality of what you get, that it's dependable, you know, that you know you're getting something there. Would that be a way, John, of distinguishing yourself in the market?
Yeah, I think it's about making people comfortable to press the button and transact. And that's where it's about making a virtue of your returns and policy. For example, you know, don't hide it, you know, making your phone number and your email available on the site. So they know if they get something they don't like, they just look at the site, they pick up the phone, they ring you and say, hey, you know, this wasn't right. So, you know, those sort of things I think are really, really important, because it's the opposite of what something like the utilities companies do. If you think of their customer service, they hide the phone number. You can never find anybody to talk to. So we find with good e-com stores, one of the most important things is that trust signal of even having a phone number in the header. Even if nobody ever rings it, the fact that it's there and they know that you're willing to put your number there, that you're available, you know, and hopefully will answer when it rings, that's such an important part of that, building that trust, that confidence in the consumer to go buy. And, you know, even for the fresh, even to be fair on the fresh vegetables and fruit element of it, yeah, when I started my grocery shop and I did all the dry stuff and said, yeah, I'll go locally for that. And it's only over time that And again, with, you know, it's either going to be as fresh as you pick yourself, or we'll take it back sort of idea that helped me sort of get into that space. So I think you're right in that, Brendan. But it's about being very upfront and very customer centric. You know, if it's not right for the customer, then you have to react in the right way, because people will be very vocal online as well. That's the other thing. You know, you know, if they have a bad experience, they will talk about it, and you have to encourage them to talk about their good experiences.
Yeah. Myriam, can I go back to something that you said earlier on in the conversation, where it's not that you have a distrust of advertising or putting money into advertising or anything, but from what I could see, what happened was that you built up organically quite well because you were in there early, but you're beginning now to look at investing maybe a little bit to see if you can scale or increase. How are you finding that, and like how's your confidence levels with testing and measuring there?
Well, the confidence level is really then to, can we do it from a technical point of view? Because there is a set of skills that you need to put Google Ads in place, or Google Shopping, or being able to track that stuff on your website. So there is A, the budget that you're willing to spend, but B, can you do it? And if you can't, you need to pay someone to do it for you. And then the budget starts to increase. And then, so this is where we are. To run an e-commerce business, you need a set of skills, various skills, but being able to even look at the Google Ads dashboard or Google Analytics dashboard, that's a set of skill, you know. So I don't know, that's not exactly answering your question, but really my reluctance is obviously getting the return on my investment, but really the skills to be able to measure, to implement what I like to do, and then to measure. And just the technicalities of putting the little bits on the website that will allow me to track a purchase, you know, if someone comes from Google Ads or comes from Facebook. And this is where, as a small business, you know, I've decided that I don't want to spend too much money on someone to do it for me. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you can outsource, and I'm not ready to do that yet, you know. So maybe I'm too much of a control freak, but also there is a budget element to making that decision, and you know, for the return, which is always unknown.
Yeah, that's. I think it's a good point, Myriam. I think if you're working with a partner in this space, you know, there has to be a high degree of communication and trust between the two parties, because very often I come across, you know, you talk to a new client or wherever, and before this, they've been told it's a black art. We know what we're doing. We're not going to tell you what we're doing. You know, trust us. And that's not, in my book, a good place to start, you know, a relationship like that. So I think it's a genuine concern that you have, and I think Google pitches, and even Facebook pitch these platforms as do-it-yourself, you know, and that's only correct up to a very small point. I've seen too many horror stories, you know, I think it's false advertising to say that they're do-it-yourself. And you just have to find the right balance of budget and outside expertise and a really good working relationship to make that successful. But I think if you have those two pieces in place, you can make it successful.
Yeah. And Melodie, lastly, if I go to you on with this question, what also occurred to me chatting to you is that your design background, and maybe your background in brand development and that has kind of landed you in a role that has mixed your passion with your business. Do you find it very enjoyable with that?
I do. I actually feel like, especially kind of the industry we're in, and even in terms of like, we're talking about social media, advertising and things like that, it's very visual. So it really helps to kind of have that background, because we can do a lot of it in-house. So like, we do the website in-house, we do all the photography in-house, you know, all the content creation, it's all done in-house, which has been a really, You know, it's like it saved us a lot of money, because obviously it hasn't saved us a lot of time, because all these things come with their own headaches and things like that. But it's definitely been great that I can utilize those skills. And I think that even when we were starting out, that was kind of a big factor for me, that I still wanted it to be something creative and something that had like a design element to it, but maybe stepping away from, you know, like graphic design, like just kind of, and not narrowing it down to that. But yeah, I definitely think it has helped us a lot. But I'd say as we grow, it might be something that we might need to look to outsource, just because, you know, when you're starting out, you kind of wear all the hats. But as you grow, you know, you don't have time to be dedicating to everything. And I think even with the photography, like there's a lot of work that goes into kind of, you know, the planning of it, the actual photo shoot, the editing, the kind of uploading it all to the website. But I find our website especially, it's just a beast. It's so much work in itself, and like at the moment it's kind of working well for us. And like we recently kind of launched our own kind of create your own Vixie gift box, just to give our like customers more of that sense of they're actually coming in and maybe picking things and shopping, as opposed to us just giving them the finished piece. But I definitely think that the website, like, it's never finished. I feel like with anything like that, every week I'm doing something new to the website, or something behind the scenes, or updating content. And I think that while it is great, it can be definitely stressful, you know, to kind of just have to take on everything. And like even Myriam, the way she was saying about the, you know, like, yes, to an extent you could probably do all kind of advertising and things yourself, but it's, do you have the time to be kind of putting to all these different things while still running the business and kind of having the day-to-day tipping over? But I do think the design background has definitely helped with us getting us off the ground anyway.
And that was, you actually touched on a point that I was going to ask you about earlier, because the build your own gift box, like, I mean, my background is I did e-commerce for Lenovo, so we were talking about configuring a laptop. And we found that people who built their own converted 2 and 3 times better than people to pick something, just one thing off the shelf. And I was just curious. I mean, maybe it's new for you at the moment, but are you seeing a difference in how people convert when they're actually building their own versus taking your pre-selected one?
I think definitely, because that whole kind of building our own was something we wanted to do from the beginning, but obviously it was just kind of having the time and the, you know, the skill set to do it. But since we've launched, I think we only launched it a month or so ago, and literally all of our sales have just been from that. All of our lovely curated ones that we've spent hours perfectly photographing have just been pushed aside. But I think it's kind of opened up a lot of possibility for us now, that we can kind of start getting in products that we don't necessarily have to have a plan in place. Okay, well, that one will match with that and that'll look good with this, that we can just offer a variety and give our customers the option that, you know, maybe they have a set budget, or maybe they have a kind of set color scheme they even want. And I think that kind of create your own Vixie box has been a huge game changer for us.
Because again, that's what I was suspecting, that because I think what we find when the consumer is in control of the experience, that they'll do 2 things. One, they're invested in it. I'm after spending 10 minutes picking 3 of these things, This is my box, right? So I'm going to put up a little bit more pain, even the checkout process, because I'm invested in it as well. And then the other thing is, they don't feel like they're being pressurized. You know, if they're looking at a box and it's 79 euros or whatever, and say, I sort of like it, you know, maybe, you know, whatever. And we found that not only did they convert better, but they tended to spend on average up to 50% more. So, you know, because it's exactly what they want, you know, instead of just spending 50, maybe they're happier spending 75 because they know. So where you give it comes back to putting the consumer and the customer front and center, like where you give them control and they're in control of the experience, it generally just, it's just a more successful result tends to occur. So I'm really delighted now that that's worked so well for you, because I suspected it might.
Yeah, and I think as well, it kind of gives it gives our customers a sense that they're putting more into the gift, you know, that it's not just something they've kind of just bought online and then sent it off and not a lot of thought goes into it, that they have, like, you know, put a bit of their own personal touch on it by the products they chose, by the handwritten card, even like giving them the option of what packaging they want, or, you know, what color ribbon. And like it might seem like small things, but like just adding that personal touch to it, that I think that without having the kind of build your own box, you just would miss almost.
Yeah, great. Listen, I want to thank everybody. Before I do, John, great conversation again today. Anything you want to pull or highlight out of all that?
I suppose, I mean, again, yeah, thanks everybody. It's been a really interesting, you know, conversation. I think we've hit a lot of common themes that we come across with people. But I think the Brexit opportunity and shopping online, you know, for Irish brands, Irish offerings, I think is something we have to all, as e-commerce operators and business people, continue to focus on, because I think there is a genuine leaning into that sentiment at the moment, and if we continue to build on that, it will be advantageous. I mean, the other thing, I mean, the same theme about, you know, having the right offering, you know, like, you know, Mimitoys, in terms of it's a collection that you cannot get anywhere else. It's curated, there's thought put into it. It's the point of difference, you know, it's the old thing, if you can't compete, don't. So you have to find a way to compete. And you know, as I said, just the depth of content around even the offerings and the collection of the brands, I found when I was looking at it, Myriam, was just really, really compelling. And I think that's going to be, that's absolutely part of the, you know, one of the cornerstones of your success. And then even coming back to the customer experience, like with vixigifting, Melodie, like we're talking about there, like giving the customer the power to build their own, like that's really focusing on the customer, thinking about what they want to do and helping them do what they want to do. So it allows you to push something downhill instead of trying to push something uphill if you're going with the customer. And then I think in terms of David and Frutik, I think it's all about finding that audience, you know, and right scaling it. You know, if your audience is physically, you know, within a couple of kilometers of your location, then how do you suck in your unfair share of that, you know, group of people into your store and continue to stay engaged with them and connected? Because I think, like I've talked to a number of, you know, sort of retail shop owners like that, and trying to find that hybrid approach, that yes, the business might always be 90–95% transacted in the physical building, but the online element of it is how you keep bringing people back, to keep engaging with that audience, and keep growing that audience. So, you know, I think everybody this morning brought something different to the table in terms of how they're building success in their business, and that's the fun thing about this, is hearing those stories and the approaches that people are using, and there's more than one way of skinning a cat, and being successful in this space. Oh, and I better be careful. I hope there's no cat lovers on, right?
Listen, thank you very much.
I'm a dog person more than a cat person.
I think we'll wrap it up with that. I want to thank so much Myriam Doyle of Mimitoys. I want to thank Melodie Fox of vixigifting, and I want to thank David Tuohy of Fruitique, and of course the sage himself once again. Great words, John Leech of WSI. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, folks.